Hello. I got another bad idea. And nobody to stop me. So hopefully the quality of this audio and video is good. Camera's a little that way, but that's okay. Actually, there is a reason I'll show you later. So I've been really busy over the last 2 days. Like, I'm dying busy because I'm physically limited due to medical problems. And, well, I know it's a tiny little window, and eventually I'll show you guys better, but here's a little sneak peek. That's my little sneak peek. Alright. The server rack, as I'm going to call it. So, is this a good spot? Yeah, this is a good spot. So I've been messing around with stuff. I did add a switch, although it's into my system, but it's going to be limited use. I need to really get another proper managed switch, probably like an enterprise level managed switch. But right now I do have a managed switch that has 4 ports that are gigabit, 24 that are 10100. I don't know what the hell I'll use those for. But because it's managed and because it has 4 fiber optic ports on it, I'm just going to keep it. It was really cheap, and returning it wouldn't even be worth the cost it would take to ship it and the gas to drive to the fucking post office. So it is what it is. So what am I trying to do now? Well, I have a NAS, as you guys should know. Let me step back. I have 2 physical servers running VMware, right? Server 1, server 2. That's how I'm just going to call it for this time frame. The first server number 1, is the one that's running my NAS server, which is a Windows server, nothing more, and what I call the NAS is nothing more than a shared virtual drive, which is this guy. So this guy, and I've shown this before already, is a roughly 6 terabyte virtual disk in VMware in the RAID 10 on the first server, and it's passed into a Windows server, Windows Server 2016 specifically. Doesn't matter. I could have done this in Windows 7. It would have been the same shit. Probably because I haven't even come close to touching any features of a Windows server whatsoever. But I'm familiar with Windows one way or another, and I like it. It's simple, I'm familiar, and it makes things easy. Everything just works, and if I learn anything more about it, I might be able to use it, abuse it, or otherwise take over the world with it. Fantastic. If not, whatever. So it's nothing more than a shared drive, right? Okay. So that's my NAS, a 6 terabyte shared drive. Now, if I close that, we have, I don't know why I said we, more like me. There's this tool I downloaded called NAS Performance Tester 1.7. And I've been running it on a few different things. So what you're seeing me on right now, this is my physical main gaming desktop. It's running on Windows 7, and it has latency based, for gaming purposes, TCP optimizations, and I think that's going to be the reason why some of the numbers are going to look the way they look. That was just a small disclaimer. So this is what I'm calling, in this case, the tool asks for your NAS drive letter, and it actually finds the share perfectly. It's impressive. I got so many different shares on the network, and it just somehow knew that was my NAS. Voodoo magic? Who knows? But within the NAS folder, or the drive, whatever you want to call it, I made a folder here called Test Hyperpsychosis. That represents this desktop right here. So when it run a test like this, I don't know why I made it do a 400 meg test. I didn't want to do that. One iteration of just a file size 100 megs. So what this is going to do is this. It runs it twice in this case. Whatever you specify, it'll do it twice at the file size. So it basically tried to write a file. I think it read, no, okay. It writes a file first, and then it reads the file afterwards. So as you can see, oh yeah, it even tells you right here, write, file read. So it wrote the file at almost 52 megs per second, and it read it at almost 66.5. And this is just a 100 meg file. You'll use a bigger file size if you want to get more accurate and averaged out properly data. But for the moment, just for what I'm saying, this will work. This computer is the slowest of the bunch under normal circumstances, and I think, and I haven't confirmed it, that it's because of my TCP optimized settings. Excuse me, my voice is a little dying. So in Windows, on my gaming computer, I used this tool and a couple other odds and ends, registry tweaks and things to really fine-tune a few things to maximize latency for gaming. And whether any of the stuff in this particular thing, like the congestion control provider, or disabling virtually every form of offloading, since, well, let's not get into that. But realistically, I think, if anything, it's the result of this guy. Anybody who's been gaming long enough, hard enough, has heard of the term Nagel algorithm. And in my case, it's disabled, or it should be disabled, which improves latency but reduces throughput. So it can be great for games, but it may slow down things like when you're downloading a file. And I think this particular setting may be the reason why. I don't know for sure why these tests are slower here than they will be on some of the other machines, like I'm going to show you. But I'm not willing to test it that far. I don't really care enough at the moment. That's not really what I'm after. So let me continue on because I haven't even gotten to the point. So let's just say 52, 66. That's what my main computer is. Now, I have TeamViewer over here. Let's start over. Yeah, we'll start over here. So this is desktop number 2. And hopefully the extra overhead on the CPU doesn't mess up the video. This is where I record my video stuffs and where I stream from and so on. And this is also the computer that you guys hear that chirping on sometimes. If this gets packet loss, it chirps. So this is a Windows 10 desktop, and similar gigabit everything, it just goes in like normal. It has its own folder that it's going on the NAS called Test Symbiosis. So when I hit the start, and just a 100 meg file just for the hell of it, for speed in this case, you can see it's already like 100 megs almost and 88 megs per second read. So this is test the Symbiosis desktop. Got Hyperpsychosis, Symbiosis. These are both physical, real desktops running an operating system, Windows 7, Windows 10 respectively. Now this is Hallucinosis. This is my DJing PC. located out in the living room with my PA sound system that pretty much vibrates the entire neighborhood and gets me, police come knocking and stuff, because it's like 6 in the morning. Apparently people want to be dildos. But anyways, this computer is physically located way out in the living room. I have a 100-foot Ethernet cable right now. I plugged in and I ran it out my door and plugged it into that. Normally I try to use Wi-Fi or something else, but I'm continuously experimenting with stuff. But in this case, the NAS, because I have the N drive letter, or the N letter already used for something, it defaulted to like S or some shit. So this is test hallucinosis. It's also running Windows 10 on a 100-foot cable. Now, here's the difference. This guy, I physically plugged in, not into the gigabit switch. I plugged it into the 10100. So it's going to be slower. When I plugged it into the gigabit, it was basically the exact same as the other desktop you saw with Windows. But because it's running at the 100 megabit speeds instead of the gigabit, it is basically about 1/10. And you can already see that there. It's like 11 point some megs as opposed to almost 100. So about 1/10 of the performance. Same with the read. So interesting test case scenario. Now, putting the physical desktops, that's 3 physical desktops in 3 different scenarios, so to speak. Operating system or network duplex, doodad, schmad, whatever. Now, I'm adding into the mix this. We have, this is server number 1, and this is server number 2. I call them .5 and .6 typically, and I have an encoding server on each of these machines, on each of these virtual machines on the server. And this is where things get even more interesting, I think. The first of the 2 is located on the same server as the NAS. Like, it's not going directly through the system, it's just going to go through the same NAS system that everything else does. I didn't even, here we go. I have a folder for each one of these. Test. It does something interesting. Just a quick little, I don't even, whoa. Hey, you broke it. Or maybe I fixed it. So, as you can see, what this means, this server, by the way, or this virtual machine, has no relation to any physical switch. It only goes through the switches inside ESXi, and it's on the same physical machine. So there must be some badass, like, optimizations and stuff that goes on the V-switch level of things, since it's not even going through a physical switch. That, or maybe the physical switches are bottlenecks, I don't know. But you can see I'm like half a gig right there. And it's still going through a drive, NAS lettered, everything. It's not going directly. I'm not doing it off the NAS server. I simply did the encoding servers I use. I have one on each server. So you can see that one was 600 some, etc., etc. Now, server 2, same thing. It was just a copy of the thing, and I made a folder called server 2. And man, I'm talking for too long. I apologize. And here you can see 116 and 118. So, fairly similar to my Windows 10 machine that was physically connected to the gigabit, as the second server virtual machine that is also connected to the gigabit switch physically. Now, the interesting thing is this is a little bit faster, it feels like, but that's probably got nothing to do with any optimizations, but because this thing is recording video and any other background processes and so on and so on. So it's still a little bit slower, but it's in roughly the same ballpark. Like I can round that up to say, okay, it's about 100 meg per second. And okay, this is a little closer to 120, but it's not encoding video. It's not doing shit right now. It's literally just running this program in an Explorer window, and that's about it. So I wanted to establish a benchmark, just a rough idea. And I wanted to see what happens if I take the NAS server and instead of running it off the regular VM network that it's on right now, that's part of everything else. If I pull this guy up, it'll make more sense, I think. Or it should make it. If I'm running it on the same Ethernet cable as all the other virtual machines on the first server, as opposed to giving it the last LAN slot, I'm curious if there's any improvement to be made. So where would be I just want the visual representation of what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so here we can see there's four physical network interface cards in the server. 0, 1, and 2, and number 3, aka the fourth one, is not in use currently. What I'm asking is if I took the NAS server, which is currently being shared with all these other virtual machines at the same time over 1 gigabit network card, would it be a better idea to pull that out and create a switch and just give it its own dedicated network interface card? And then it doesn't have to share anything over that? Maybe in the future, if so, I could take like pfSense and move that over into, say, server 2 and then do like network teaming and stuff where it has multiple what do you call it? Like binding doodads, schmads to increase throughput, basically by combining multiple cables and all that fun stuff, network teaming and stuff. Yeah, I'm not good with words today. What the hell? I shouldn't be recording. Bug it, I'm still recording. So, first thing I'm going to do is let's establish a reasonable baseline to get a better idea. And I'm going to do that by doing the test at, well, let's just say 1 gig. I want to try 1 gig on each machine, and then I want to maybe see what happens if I try it on 2 different machines at the same time, as that should congest it somewhat, I believe, and it will reduce throughput unless the bottleneck is elsewhere. But I'm pretty sure there's a limit to not just the interfaces on the network cards and switches and all that, but as well the actual hard drives. I don't know how fast that RAID 10 actually is. Okay, so it wrote at 52 and it read at, we'll just say 66, 67 megs. Okay. Now let's take the second machine. This will be the desktop I'm recording on. And we will also give you 1 gig start. This one wrote at about 96 megs, read at about 89. So that's already faster than my main desktop, which is consistent with the shorter test we did. Almost twice as fast. and now is going to be the one that sucks the most. That one took so long I actually paused the video and just chilled for a while. But we can see almost 12 megs and almost 12 megs, perfectly consistent read and write on the Hallucinosis DJing PC at 100 megabit Ethernet connection to the switch. Now, next up, we're going to do it with, we'll start with the server number 2, the one that's not physically located on the same machine. Well, that was much faster. So 120, or well, let's just say 118 and 117 megs. All right, that's good. Way better than 10100. And we're going to do the same thing now with the machine located on the same server. 660. Oh. Wait, I'm not superstitious. I don't care. So there is definitely something interesting, and I don't know what the mechanism would be in this case. I'm just going to assume that ESXi has a virtualized, optimized setup that allows it to communicate better without having, when it doesn't have to go through a physical switch as opposed to everything else. So the next test I want to do is, let's say I was to run 2 tests at the same time. Let's say I take here, let's just take the desktop computer. If I could freaking find where there it is. Move you over there. Start and start. So now I'm doing 2 tests at the same time. Hyperpsychosis, my main desktop, and a virtual second server. Both doing 1000 megs. And I would presume it'll slow down, and sure enough, I can see that the write took a little longer there. It slowed down. Yep, it slowed down here too in comparison to the average. And I apologize if it's hard to read this. I know I record at 720p instead of 1080, which is what I'm running my desktop at. That's because I'm still configured for live streaming on Twitch and all the audio syncing stuff necessary. If I change resolutions and stuff, it requires massive overhaul. And unless I have a way of adjusting that by just making a second system, it's not going to happen anytime soon. It's too much work. But yeah, the read speed also went down during that time frame. Now, I think this one finished fast enough before it even did, or the reading was less relevant. But this is enough information to know that if I read and write at the same time, there is a decrease in throughput, at least on the writing end of things. I can see it went down from 118 to 80, and from 52 to 41-ish. So nothing too major, but it's there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to get up off my fucking skinny ass. I'm going to go to my machines. I'm going to unplug. Or no, not unplug. I'll take this Ethernet cable fresh out of the package, and I'm going to plug this in to the 4th unused network interface slot on server number 1 and try to get ESXi configured to put the NAS onto that interface. Let's see what happens. Stupid dildo piece of shit. 3-foot cable. It's not even enough distance to go from the back of the server to the front where the switch is located. So I use a different cable. We're gonna have to buy a bunch of cables, I think, and color code and stuff eventually, but money, I'm fucking broke. After spending all this fancy pants money on this fancy pants enterprise gear. So what I did, I plugged in the final fourth port, aka number 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, which is number 4, into the switch, gigabit switch in this case, obviously. And there's a reason you're seeing me use vSphere client. I have not figured out how in VCSA to get a new network set up correctly, a new vSwitch that's got a physical adapter. I have yet to succeed. It works in the vSphere client, so I'm going to just do it that way. And I'm going to record as I do it, and we're going to see how this works out. Add new network for virtual machines. Hit next. And there's the VMNIC number 3. So 0 is used for all my regular virtual machines. That goes through one cable. And then number 1 and number 2 are respectively the WAN for my cable modem coming in and the router going out, just dedicated to that purpose. And I did experience performance improvements as a result. So I assume in this case I could have, not had the LAN. And I think I already talked about this, but I'll say it again. When I had the LAN out and I just had pfSense going in its own dedicated WAN, obviously it has to, and then just going the LAN out through there, because it's sharing with any other virtual machines, it didn't perform as well as I felt it could. So the same logic may apply here as well, right? That's the whole idea. And eventually it'll make sense, if so, to move either that, or I guess I could put in more network cards or something. But money. I have 3 unused ports on the server number 2. Network label. We will call this NAT. LAN. Finish. Alright, looks like it made switch number 4. I have a switch number 3 that's got no adapters, and this was part of a different project of making a second thing. Although ultimately I think the solution to that is going to end up being using VLANs, get a proper full-blown like 24, 48 port switch and do VLANs and stuff, as opposed to this hack job. But I have to learn more to do that too. I don't think I need to configure anything else. I think this is done. Let me rephrase that. I hope this is done. Let's go into my administration machine. Oops, it's right here. Oh, you are here. Sweet. I was wondering where I was. I'm wondering why my mouse is being all choppy and dildos. As you can see, I have an extra Ethernet card. This thing has 3 Ethernet cards. Someone was asking me on IRC, why did you make a machine, a virtual machine, just for administration stuff? To me, this is why. Because I can start attaching more Ethernet cards and connect to the different subnets all at the same time and manage everything through a single interface. Everything from my BIOS settings to all of vSphere to every router, my modem, that's that guy. What the hell is this? Oh, this is one of the switches. Yeah, that's his mono price. Laugh. I'll eventually make a video on that, I'm sure, in some way, but that's going to come later. Alright, so where are we? Oh, right, we are here. We're right the fuck over. Sorry. So, 0.5, that's server number 1. There's the NAS server. Obviously, it's running. That should not matter. I'll go to edit settings, and when it's done loading and stuff, I don't know why the mouse on it is so choppy. That's VMware tools, you're not doing your job. Whatever. So, I'll take the existing network adapter, and instead of it being on there, I'm going to push it down. Shit. Oh, whew, there it is. I was going to say, man, this was going to be a shitty fucking video. There's the network access. I think that was it. Did I just realized I called it NAT. What the fuck am I? God damn it, Necrosis. Why can't you guys help me with... Oh, right. This isn't live. Wait, it says NAT. Oh, wait, no, it says... For some reason, I typed in NAT instead of NAS. Okay. There. Much better. That'll fix everything. So don't fucking give me shit about that. I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't trying to do network address translations. I was just acronyms mixed up. Alright. We are here. Fantastic. Going into settings just to double check if I change the name, if that messes anything up here. Whoa. There we go. I hope. Okay. And I think that should be it, actually. If I just open this up real quick so I can see what's going on. See, now my mouse is nice and not dildos. Look at that. I'm going to shrink it down for just a sec. Yep, it says NAS LAN. If I go into settings, this is VMware Workstation. Yep, NAS LAN. I guess I could have changed it in here too. I don't like doing too much on the hardware end of manipulation on VM Workstation, just because the VCSA gives you more options, like the different types of virtual network cards. If I made a network card here, it would just be E1000 and so on. So that's the reasoning for that. And if I go back into the vSphere client, supposedly deprecated, fucking whatever, it gives a nice visual representation. Although I think it's probably in the VCSA thing too. I can see switch number 4. There's the NAS LAN. There's the NAS server. So right now, the NAS... Oh, fuck. Where'd it go? What the hell, man? Where'd it go? That's not cool. Oh, found it. It just scrolled me up, that's all. Oy, oy, oy. So right now the NAS server now has its own dedicated network card interface. In other words, one full Ethernet cable that will only go to the file server. Will that have any impact whatsoever? I don't know. Close that. Well, here, let's look at this first. I'm going to look at the lights on the switch from here, so while this happens, there's definitely activity on that. This is the test that should be the fastest, and what the heck is going on here? This is not the fastest. This is the speeds here, besides being extremely consistent, are the same as they were here. This is, forget that one, just look at these. This is when we were doing 2 tests at once. And I think that just gave me an understanding of what was really going on. When it was on the same virtual switch, there must be an optimization that takes place. But because now we physically moved it to another interface card slot, a port, it's automatically going out to the switch. So any optimization that could have happened no longer happens because it's still physically going out into the switch and then coming back in. And this is the proof. Server number 2's results, 118 megs, read and write, match now with this one, 118 on, like, as exact as it's going to get. So what happens on our desktop here, the worst one, or not the worst, but the most latency optimized instead of throughput optimized? Well, the results are mostly about the same. I kind of wish I didn't do the overlapping test now because it's in my way, but the previous dedicated one thing only task was 52 by, let's just say 66, round down. And this new one is 52 again by 66, so it's about the same. The write is a tiny bit potentially faster, but by most likely a negligible amount at best. So not much difference there. That's all right. How about our desktops? We'll take this guy. This is the recording PC, Windows 10. Well, this is not as good as I was hoping. We didn't do an overlap test on this machine, but we can see it went from 96 to 92, 89 to 82. I'm going to repeat this test once in case there was something else going on in the background I didn't know about. In fact, let me just double check, make sure, because my NAS server is set to do periodic synchronizing and stuff, which is a separate program running, but it's not running right now. Go. Well, these results are pretty damn exactly the same, more or less, as the previous. 92, 92, 82, 81. So technically the speeds on this computer, but it could be because it's recording or fuck knows what else, that's affecting it. The difference is still minor, but not what I was expecting to see. I was expecting to see at best no difference. But because this machine is doing more shit than nothing, this video is being recorded by it, that could be the result. I'm gonna do a start on the Hallucinosis, the DJing PC on the 10100. This one's going to take forever. So while that does that, let's take a double check here on the settings. Just double check, make sure the network card is where I wanted it to be set. The VMX, not the E1000, whatever. And it shouldn't have changed. Nope, it's using VMX Net 3, so that didn't change. During that test, I paused, and turns out my roommate had a flat, so I had to go help them out and find a jack and stuff. I can't physically do much to help, but a lot of my time just went out of nowhere, so I don't even remember exactly what I was doing. But I think I was doing this test, and it was finally done. So the slow test, virtually the same. So then the only difference I saw was in relation to this guy, and let's test it now. It's like an hour later at least. I don't even know, because I can't review the recording because I don't think I had the clock visible thanks to my camera fucking being where it is. These numbers are even lower now, so I'm inclined to believe the performance going on here on the recording PC is just a result of the continuous resource consumption on the computer. I don't have another machine I want to test it with, but I can double check real quick with server number 2. As I can see here, as you guys can see, the numbers are consistent in the virtual machine on server number 2. And the server's doing nothing, so it's the cleanest results. And I'm willing to bet you it's going to be the exact same here. Actually, screw this test. So the only other thing I'm going to test is trying to repeat the double load like I did earlier, which is start this desktop and start the server number 2 and see what happens. Chances are it shouldn't be much different. It might be better, but it definitely should not be worse. If it is, I'm going to be not so happy. But then it wouldn't make sense either. But at the same time, depending on when I hit start, it will affect the test as well. So here I see 81. Where was the other one? Somewhere in the same ballpark. And when I hit start and stop could have affected that, so 38.6 versus 40 point some. And so mostly inconclusive. Reading files virtually the same. And that one's already done taking any resources while this one's reading, so this is not a good stress test whatsoever. But I'm probably going to just leave it under this setup, though, because A, it means one more network cable I get to run, which looks cooler, with more cables and shit, more things to break too. That's how I roll. If it's not broken, you're just not doing enough yet. You just keep trying. But at the very least, it will help start the platform for the future where I will start looking into the whole network teaming and things of that nature, which is going to involve, I'm trying to think how to access the screen that would show that. I guess it would be at least in here. Seems like for my networking stuff, the vSphere client itself is still what seems to work the best. I don't know if it's because that's where all the tutorials stem from out there or what, but yeah. But like here right now, it's only one network interface, port, whatever you want to call it. But there is something for either load balancing or failover type stuff. And this would allow me to, later on, say I wanted to move the router over to the other machine or to an entirely different machine. and have 2 extra free ports on the network card, I could plug those in and tie those into this V switch and have some form of load balancing and all that stuff. It may, not so much that I care about redundancy. This is not that kind of environment where it's a necessity. But if it can handle a better load by balancing it over multiple lines, it will benefit when I have multiple things reading and writing into the drive at the same time. So it seems like my best bet is keep it like this now. I've now put all 4 network interface ports into use, and just one more layer of complication. We're one step closer to something. That something is the Necropolis data center.